Number 10. The appeal. Elaine Bredhoft told NBC's Savannah Guthrie that she will absolutely be appealing the verdict reached in the defamation trial. Quote, "We even had to try to get the UK judgment in to dismiss this case because he already has his shot." She also goes on to speak about the evidence that supposedly did not come in. It turns out she was serious, as within a month of the verdict in Johnny Depp and Amber Heard's defamation lawsuit, Heard's legal team has officially begun the appeal process. In a lengthy filing in Virginia court on Friday, the actress's legal team is seeking to throw out the June verdict in the high-profile defamation lawsuit by arguing that the ruling had a number of issues, including poor legal reasoning, an improperly vetted jury, and excessively awarded damages. Bredhoft also insisted that Heard's medical records were suppressed and that a number of things were allowed in court that should not have been allowed in, which caused the jury to be confused. But even if the appeal is unsuccessful, it's clear that Heard believes the trial was totally rigged. Number 9. Insufficient evidence. Heard's attorneys have brought forth a 43-page memorandum which asks for the verdict in Johnny Depp's libel case to be tossed on the grounds of insufficient evidence, and with it a more than $10 million award. The main reason? Well, Heard's team argued that it was false for Depp to claim that he lost his role in Pirates of the Caribbean film series, all because of her op-ed she wrote in the Washington Post, citing the fact that Depp didn't provide evidence that the op-ed was the reason he lost the role in the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. The lengthy document claims that there were articles noting he wouldn't be in the 6th film more than 2 months before Heard's essay was published, and that because Depp was never officially contracted to do a 6th film, he cannot claim damages for a film he was never contracted to do, insisting that the film was already in development without him on board before Heard's essay was even published. Number 8. Juror 15. Heard also claims that one of the jurors who served during the trial was not properly vetted, saying that there were problems with their credibility. The filing points to Juror 15 as proof, arguing that there appears to be a 25-year discrepancy between their birthday on court records and other identity documents. They urge the court to investigate whether Juror 15 properly served on the jury because their listed birth year was 1945, and according to her attorneys, the juror was clearly born later than 1945. In fact, publicly available information demonstrates that he appears to have been born in 1970. The motion goes on to say, quote, "This discrepancy raises the question of whether or not Juror 15 actually received a summons for jury duty and was properly vetted by the court to serve on the jury," basically claiming that the jury selection was rigged because of the massive age discrepancy. Heard's legal team are hoping this alleged discrepancy can raise questions over the suitability of the jury panel as a whole. The filing also alleges that Juror 15 may be an entirely different person than who they say they are, which would completely compromise the due process of the trial. Number 7. Her defense team. Another reason why Heard is still facing legal trouble for the incident in Australia is because of her lawyer at the time. The actress's attorney in 2015 was Jeremy Kirk, and he told the court that his client never meant to lie on her incoming passenger card. Kirk said that the actress was simply jet-lagged and just assumed her assistants had sorted out all the paperwork. Quote, "She has made a tired, terrible mistake." But that reasoning fell on deaf ears as prosecutor Peter Callahan said ignorance and fatigue were no excuse and that the laws apply to everyone. Kirk reportedly cited video evidence that the actress made in a gesture of contribution over her alleged breaches of Australia's 108-year-old quarantine laws, claiming that his client made no attempt to hide the dogs at Brisbane Airport and she did not understand the meaning and significance of declaring no to customs questions about having animals. Number 6. Lack of motive. This one is really interesting. Another reason Heard's team is filing the appeal is because they claim she actually believes her own allegations. That's right, her team is arguing that what actually matters here is whether or not Heard believes that she's a real victim of domestic violence. They are saying that if she believes her own allegations, a jury can't find that she acted with malice, and that she would have written the op-ed without any bad intentions. The court documents insist that Depp's legal team never actually proved she didn't believe her own claims. In the appeal, the text says, quote, "The jury's verdict was obviously influenced by Mr. Depp's pleas in the face of the court's preclusion of Mrs. Heard's introduction of evidence that Mr. Depp had, in fact, already been tried in the court of his choice for committing 12 acts of domestic violence." So basically her team is trying to write off the verdict by saying that Heard did not have malicious intent by writing the op-ed. 5. The Senate meeting. A TikTok video was posted this week of a Senate meeting of the Rural and Regional Affairs and Transport Legislation Committee, which took place on October 21st back in 2020. The clip showed Senator Tony Sheldon of the Australian Australian Labor Party being asked about the timeline of the perjury investigation against Heard. Quote, "There was evidence presented in the London court case which suggested false statements were provided in the court case in Australia in 2016. So we're investigating that." In a TikTok video which was viewed more than 400,000 times, the politician said that as he understands it, the former estate manager of Johnny Depp, Kevin Murphy, said in a witness statement that he told Heard by mail, telephone, and in person that she could not take the dogs to Australia because the relevant paperwork and permits were not complete. As the clip came to a close, Lane then confirmed that this directly contradicted Heard's statement at the time of the trial, as she said it was a misunderstanding as she had assumed her husband's assistants had arranged the terrier's passage into the country. Number 4. Discrediting witnesses. Following her lawyer, Elaine Bredhoft, Heard in fact claimed that the actor paid the witnesses brought by him for their testimonies. In a shocking clip released by NBC, Savannah Guthrie asked the actress about the various reasons that the jury might have had for not believing her. 36-year-old Texas native said, quote, "They had sat in those seats and heard over 3 weeks of non-stop, relentless testimony from paid employees. And towards the end of the trial, randos, as I say." That's right, she literally called the witnesses for Johnny Depp randoms, and many people believe she was even talking about British model Kate Moss. She later also stated that the jurors did not believe her claims, as the 3.5 weeks of testimonies by Johnny Depp's attorneys was an attempt to portray Heard as a non-credible person. In fact, the Aquaman actress added that she thought the testimonies from Depp's witnesses conditioned the jury not to believe one word that came out of her mouth. Number 3. Perjury. In a statement given to ET, a spokesperson from the Australian Department of Agriculture, Water and Environment said that they are, quote, "investigating allegations of perjury by Ms. Heard during court proceedings for the 2015 illegal importation of her 2 dogs into Australia." They added that the investigations are ongoing over allegations that Heard lied under oath. This is incredibly serious, as perjury carries a maximum jail term of 14 years, while illegal importation can result in a 7-year stretch under the Queensland Penal Code. In fact, the TikTok video of the Australian Senate actually showed confirmation of an investigation taking place. In the clip, Peter Lane, then listed as First Assistant Secretary of the Compliance Division, said that giving false testimony is an offense under the Crimes Act, so that is what they are now investigating. Number 2. New text evidence. Heard also took issue with texts that weren't allowed into the trial. She actually claimed that the text messages she sent to friends and family during her relationship with Depp are evidence of the domestic violence that she suffered during their marriage. In one message Heard claims she sent her father in 2014, she wrote that Depp kicked her in front of everyone during a private flight. In fact, that very incident was a subject of testimony in the couple's defamation trial as well. And another in 2015 read, quote, "Johnny did a number on me tonight. I'm safe and I'm with my support tonight, but I need some real help. Can I come tomorrow? I called earlier because I thought I had a concussion and I didn't know if I should have called police." By exposing the text messages during her NBC interview, it's clear that she believes this new line of evidence is going to somehow muddy the waters of the case, even though she knows that it wasn't actually allowed in the trial. And number 1. Discrediting audio tapes. The audio recordings played during Depp's testimony show Heard admitting to starting a physical fight between them and downplaying his reaction to the incident. When speaking on NBC with Savannah Guthrie, Heard claimed that the audio tapes were edited. Quote, "What you would hear in those clips are not evidence of what was happening." But when Guthrie said that Heard admitted to starting fights on recorded audio, she said, quote, "I know how much has been made of these audio tapes. They were first leaked online after being edited. What you would hear in those clips are not evidence of what was happening," claiming that the 20-second clips are not representative of the 2 or 3 hour conversations they came from. But when Guthrie asked her why she hadn't submitted the full recordings, she just said, "I'm not a lawyer." Well, now she is really trying to discredit those tapes and insinuate that the trial was rigged. Number 10. Illegal importation. In 2015, Heard and Depp defied Australia's Quarantine Act that required dogs entering the country from the US to be declared and spend 10 days in quarantine. The then couple landed in hot water after Heard brought their 2 dogs with her when she visited Depp down under as he filmed the 5th installment of the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. Heard allegedly said no on her immigration form when asked if she needed to declare any animals, which resulted in Heard getting in trouble with the Australian government for breaching biosecurity laws. The couple was told in May 2015 that they could either get the dogs out of the country or Aussie officials would put down the pups, named Boo and Pistol. When asked why Depp wasn't charged as well, the prosecutor's office said that there had been a lack of admissible evidence against anyone except Heard. 9. The Australian environment. The country has very strict animal import laws. When you really think about it, it's no surprise that the government came down so hard on Amber Heard. Since Australia is isolated geographically and some of its wildlife are found only on that continent, any disruption to the natural balance, such as the introduction of non-native animals and their associated diseases, could ripple through the ecosystem. Basically, the penalties for offenders are so tough because the country's animals are so vulnerable, and due to the isolation of being on a literal island, the native animals are highly susceptible to visiting animals' contagions because they've never had the chance to develop resistance. So realistically, Heard bringing the 2 dogs into the country without an import permit and without first subjecting them to a mandated quarantine was a recipe for disaster. Number 8. Video apology. The Hollywood couple had to apologize to the Australian public for their terrier's unauthorized visit down under in a very awkward public act of remorse. A scripted video in which Depp says Australians are just as unique as their wildlife. The video was submitted to the court as Miss Heard escaped conviction for failing to declare the couple's dogs Pistol and Boo when visiting Depp in May. Even Australia's Deputy Prime Minister, Barnaby Joyce, said that the couple were less than willing participants in the video. The actors described Australia as a wonderful island with a treasure trove of unique plants, animals, and people, and warned others to respect its laws. Quote, Australians are just as unique, both warm and direct. When you disrespect Australian law, they will tell you firmly. It is not clear whose idea that video was, but reports said that Australian prosecutors had vetted the dialogue beforehand. Reaction on social media was swift and brutal, with many comparing the short film to government propaganda. Number 7. Flawed legal logic. In court documents that were filed for Heard's appeal, Elaine Bredhoft said that the case rests on flawed legal logic, arguing that instead of proving how the op-ed negatively affected Depp's claims, they were based solely on defamation by implication theory, abandoning any claims that Heard's statements were actually false. The attorney also argued that Depp's legal team said it would focus on the period after the op-ed came out, but instead widened to encompass events and statements from way back in 2016. The filing argues that instead of proving Heard hurt his career with her 2018 essay, which is why he sued her for defamation, he was instead trying to disprove the initial 2016 domestic violence allegations, which were not up for judgment. Heard's team also claims that Depp didn't actually prove that he suffered that much financial hardship because of the op-ed. In fact, they claimed that it was very unlikely the actor would have appeared in Pirates of the Caribbean 6 after all, because he himself said he wouldn't have taken the role for 1,000,000 alpacas. 6. Publicity. At the time, the then Agriculture Minister Barnaby Joyce criticized the actress and actor for bringing the animals into Australia without properly adhering to the law. Quote, if we start letting movie stars, even though they've been the sexiest man alive twice, to come into our nation with pets, then why don't we just break the laws for everybody? Joyce, who now serves as Australia's Deputy Prime Minister, infamously said that it's time that Pistol and Boo buggered off back to the United States, so he basically told them to get lost. The comments elevated what might have otherwise been a local spat into a global delight for comedians and broadcasters all across the nation. Surprisingly, a large portion of the Australian public actually agreed with the minister's sentiment, and the couple started receiving widespread criticism down under. The Guardian even ran a dog death countdown ticker, while comedian John Oliver dedicated a more than 6-minute segment to making fun of the whole ordeal. Australia hadn't really heard much of Amber before the incident, but it's safe to say that it was terrible publicity. Number 5. Excessive damages. As a part of the appeal filed by Amber Heard's legal team, they insist that the damages awarded to her ex-husband are far too high considering the verdict. The lengthy document goes on to read, quote, the jury's compensatory and punitive damage award were excessive as a matter of law, and added that Depp only deserved to receive reputational damages, insinuating that the damages awarded to him were blown way out of proportion. If you don't know, the two parties were found to have defamed each other in June, but the jury ruled largely in Depp's favor, awarding him $15 million in damages, while Heard was only awarded $2 million. The judge later lessened the punitive damages to $350,000, citing limits set by state law. Following the trial, Heard's lawyer said in June that the actor wouldn't be able to pay the monetary penalty awarded to Depp, but Judge Penny told Heard's attorney that if she wanted to appeal the verdict, she would have to put up an $8.35 million bond with an annual 6% interest. Representatives for Heard have said that she does not have the money to pay Depp or meet the bond. So not sure how that's going to happen. Number 4. Falsifying travel documents. Accompanied by her now ex-husband, Heard pleaded guilty to falsifying immigration documents in an Australian court in 2015, stating that she had made a mistake due to sleep deprivation. 2 months later, the actress was officially charged with 2 counts of illegally importing animals, and the case was closed after she pleaded guilty in a Queensland court for falsifying quarantine documents. She ticked a box on her passenger arrival card indicating that she had no animals when arriving by private jet in Brisbane on the 21st of April. For faking the documents, she ended up being placed on a good behaviour bond and copping a $1,000 fine. In fact, according to Guardian Australia, providing a false document on entry under the nation's Migration Act carries a maximum penalty of 10 years and a fine of $117,800 Australian dollars, which is really interesting considering that the actress only got a slap on the wrist for the whole incident, which the Australian public collectively felt was quite unfair. Number 3. Therapist notes. Much has been made of the therapist notes that Heard claims would prove Depp physically attacked her. Quote, "There's a binder worth of years of notes dating back to 2011, from the very beginning of my relationship, that were taken by my doctor. After those notes were examined, it was revealed that on one page, the therapist wrote that Heard claimed Depp had hit her and threw her on the floor. Another note 8 months later said that Depp had ripped her nightgown and threw her on the bed." She told Guthrie that the notes represented years and years of real-time explanations of what was going on. Even Brett Hoft claimed that her client's medical records were suppressed, which she says were very significant because they showed a pattern going all the way back to 2012 of Heard reporting the domestic violence to her therapist. But if it was so significant, why wasn't it counted? Well, Judge Penny had ruled the notes as hearsay and refused to allow the evidence into the trial, which does make total sense. Number 2. Depp's estate manager. Kevin Murphy, the actor's former estate manager who worked for Johnny Depp for over 8 years, concerned Australian officials when he told the London court that Heard had ordered him to lie under oath to cover up the fact that she flew pets into Queensland on a private jet without even declaring them. In a written statement, Murphy told the High Court that he had repeatedly warned the actress about Australia's strict animal entry rules. But when the smuggling controversy went public, Heard demanded that he provide a false statement to the Australian court saying that she didn't know anything about the requirements. When Murphy said that he was uncomfortable with lying, Heard allegedly said, quote, "Well, I want your help on this. I wouldn't want you to have a problem with your job." He testified that Heard started threatening his job stability unless he cooperated with providing a declaration that supported her false account for the Australian proceedings. Number 1. Witness statements. Now this could definitely be the nail in the coffin for Heard when it comes to her legal trouble that she's still facing in Australia. Murphy, Depp's former estate manager, admitted during his testimony in London that he actually went along with Heard's demands. Quote, "Because of this, I felt extreme pressure to cooperate, despite knowing this would involve being untruthful." He later confirmed that he had in fact been contacted by the FBI and had agreed to provide Australian authorities with a witness statement. A representative for the Department of Agriculture, Water and the Environment confirmed this, telling E! News, quote, "The department is seeking to obtain witness statements, and once obtained, the Commonwealth Director of Public Prosecutions will consider whether the evidence is sufficient to warrant pursuance on the matter." An attorney for Heard criticized the investigation, telling the outlet that the Australian government and the FBI are victimizing a person who has already been adjudicated to be the victim of domestic violence.